On Global TV News Express, Nigerian Safety Investigation Bureau blames poor maintenance, faulty track switch for Abuja-Kaduna trail derailment. In business, federal government says revenue increase will not stop federal government from borrowing. On the foreign scene, 14 killed as super typhoons Ragasa wreaks havoc. In sports, National Sports Commission leadership reaffirms inclusion of 14 constituencies in all sports federations boards. Hello and welcome to all our viewers in Nigeria and around the world to News Express on Global Television, coming to you live from the nation's capital, Abuja. I am Sadia Yakubu. A quick reminder that Global Television is on DSTV, channel 365 and StarTimes channel 276. The Nigerian Safety Investigation Bureau says its investigation into the recent Abuja-Kaduna train derailment at Assam Station has revealed that poor maintenance and a faulty track switch were key factors behind the incident. The Bureau stated that its preliminary findings indicated that several sleepers at the station that had been damaged in a previous incident, which were only patched instead of being properly repaired. Investigators also found that the automatic switch mechanism at the station's crossing point was unserviceable at the time of the derailment, which is the second to occur at the same station within 13 months. First Lady Oluremi Tinubu says her 65th birthday fundraiser for the long-delayed National Library project has so far generated 20.4 billion naira. Speaking at the State House Conference Center, Abuja, Tinubu dismissed suggestions that the initiative tagged Oluremi at 65 Education Fund was politically motivated. Described it as a love project born of her passion for education. Our correspondent has details.
First Lady Oluremi Tinubu said this fund, supervised by the Federal Ministry of Education and the Chief Librarian of the Federation, will remain open until December 2025 to accommodate more donations. The First Lady explained that the contributions would help revive the styled 12-story library complex in Abuja, which has suffered decades of delay since its approval in 1981 and is currently only 40% complete.
That is why if we take our baby steps in well-doing, before long things will begin to shape up for our beloved nation. We all have to rise up, play our part in the building process. A grain of sand and a little drop of water makes a mighty ocean.
The First Lady recalled her past philanthropic efforts, including raising 50 million for the National Sickle Cell Foundation, 200 million for the New Era Foundation, and building schools in Liberia. She, however, expressed confidence that the project considered national treasure will be finished within 2 years.
What is wrong in doing well or trying to build a society? If I could assist the post-war building process in Liberia, by donating the Oluremi Tinubu Elementary and Junior Secondary School in Montserrado County in Liberia, what is wrong in drawing attention to some of the areas of need in our beloved nation?
Oluremi Tinubu acknowledged support from the President, the Vice President, former leaders, former First Ladies, National Assembly members, state governors and their spouses, business moguls and members of the public.
The head of service, Jumai Bako, has commended Governor Uba Sani for supporting and strengthening Kaduna State Civil Service through training and capacity building since he assumed office. Bako enjoined civil servants to be dedicated to the job by maintaining good work ethics, given the training that they have been receiving since the present administration came on board. The head of service made these remarks after inspecting computer-based test centers where civil servants who are seeking confirmation of appointment are undergoing examinations after the statutory 2 years probation period. Chief Judge of the Federal Capital Territory, Justice Hussaini Baba Yusuf, has discharged no fewer than 35 inmates awaiting trial across the 2 custodial centers in Kefi local government area of Nasarawa State. A statement by the Chief Judge of the Federal Capital Territory, Baba Yusuf, says they discharged inmates during a visit to the Medium Security Custodial Center in Kefi. The intervention facilitated by the Public and Private Development Center, a non-governmental organization, saw to the release of the 35 inmates, who included 33 males and 2 females. Chairperson of Bauchi State Independent Electoral Commission, Jumai Abubakar, has urged residents of the state to take advantage of the ongoing permanent voter card registration exercise to enable them to participate fully in the forthcoming elections. Abubakar gave the charge during a sensitization visit at that local government area of the state. She explained that the essence of the exercise was to create awareness among the electorate that voter registration is currently ongoing nationwide. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission has been asked to release an interim report on the investigation into the alleged $4 billion fraud linked to the failed rehabilitation of Nigerians' Port Harcourt, Warri and Kaduna refineries. Anti-corruption crusaders under the aegis of Concerned Nigerians for Transparency and Justice made the demand in a statement. A probe was reportedly launched in the Inclusive Rehabilitation Project about 6 months ago, but the outcome of the investigation is yet to be disclosed. Inspector General of Police Kayode Ekpetokun has warned senior officers of force against misuse of authority, particularly in land disputes. The police chief made the call at a strategic meeting with Commissioner of Police and Zonal Commander of the force in Abuja. He noted that the force will serve private interests and warned that officers who cross the line will face strict sanctions. Kikelomo Okiri has details.
Land disputes remain one of the most common sources of communal tension across the country, often leading to clashes, destruction of properties, and even loss of lives. Against this backdrop, the Inspector General of Police, Kayode Ekpetokun, cautioned senior officers to stay clear of personal involvement in land disputes. The police chief emphasized that officers must remain impartial, uphold the rule of law, and avoid actions that could compromise public trust in the force. He warns that any officers found meddling in private land matters for personal gain will face disciplinary action.
One area that continues to cast a shadow over our institution is the misuse of police authority in civil disputes, particularly in matters relating to land. Let me reiterate without ambiguity. The Nigerian Police Force is not and will never become an enforcer for private interests. Officers have no business escorting parties for land recovery, disrupting legally existing occupations, or meddling in civil claims without a demonstrable criminal element. The line must be clear, and any officer who crosses it will face disciplinary consequences.
The police chief further directed commissioners and zonal commanders to intensify security operations in the last quarter of the year, a period often marked by spikes in robbery, kidnapping, and banditry. He emphasized that leadership by example remains key, insisting that what commanders tolerate will shape the culture of the force.
As we approach the final quarter of the year, there is no room for complacency. The so-called Ember Months have historically seen spikes in robbery, kidnapping, ritual killings, and highway banditry. I am mandating the following. Zonal AIGs must activate multi-layered feasibility policing frameworks.
Reviewing the police operations since July, the police chief reveals that the force arrested more than 4,300 suspects across the country, including kidnappers, armed robbers, cultists, and illegal arms carriers. Over 1,100 kidnapped victims were rescued, while more than 700 firearms and 21,000 rounds of ammunition were recovered. Kikelomo Okiri, Global Television News.
You're watching the live broadcast of News Express. When News Express returns, National Sports Commission leadership reaffirms inclusion of 14 constituencies in all sports federations board. Details coming shortly, plus business and foreign stories on the other side of this break. Please stay with us. The Federal Inland Revenue Service says government borrowing will continue as part of Nigeria's long-term economic strategy. The executive chairman of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, Zach Adedeji, made this known while addressing State House correspondents in Abuja that borrowing should not be seen as a weakness, but as an integral part of the country's fiscal plan. Oyi Agbomufuegbe has details.
The executive chairman of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, Zach Adedeji, explained that every national budget is built on a mix of revenue, expenditure, and borrowing. According to him, loans are not used for salaries, but for investments that will serve future generations, such as infrastructure projects. Adedeji insisted that borrowing remains essential to balance revenue gains with long-term national development goals.
By that time, we will have harmonized all the taxes, reduction in corporate tax rates, budget and spending reforms. Mr. President just finished meeting now with National Assembly to make sure that now that the fundamental is set, how do we have or continue to have the budget that works for all Nigeria?
The FIRS boss explained that federal revenue collection rose sharply to 3.64 trillion naira in September 2025, a 411% increase from 711 billion naira recorded in May 2023. He noted that the jump was largely driven by higher non-oil income, streamlined tax reforms, and improved compliance.
The total accretion to Federation as at May 2023 is 711 billion. That is what we made. As of September, which is last month, you will see the total accretion is 3.6 trillion. That is increase of 411%, which is just as a result of the economic reform decision that Mr. President has taken. And then when
Adedeji maintained that with reforms already boosting collections, borrowing will continue to complement revenue growth. A move, he says, is necessary to secure Nigeria's long-term economic stability. Oyi Agbomufuegbe, reporting for Global TV News.
Over the years, tricycle operations in Kano State have replaced the popular taxi, effectively creating jobs and feeding thousands of youth across the states. Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Yemi Cardoso, says 14 Nigerian banks have fully met the new capital requirements in the ongoing capitalization exercise. Cardoso disclosed this while presenting a communique from the 302 meeting of Monetary Policy Committee of the Central Bank of Nigeria in Abuja. On the foreign scene, Super Typhoon Ragasa has killed at least 14 people in Taiwan after a lake burst before lashing Hong Kong and Macau with fierce wind, floods and storm surges. Mukhtar Kasim reports.
In Taiwan's Hualien County, a decade-old lake barrier gave way, leaving 14 people dead and 18 injured. The storm also killed 2 people in the Philippines. Hong Kong saw widespread flooding, with surging water smashing through a luxury hotel and sweeping into residential estates. Strong winds toppled trees, damaged footbridges, and shook high-rise buildings. More than 760 residents took refuge in emergency shelters, while hundreds of flights were cancelled at the city's airport. In Macau, electricity was cut off in some low-lying neighborhoods. Authorities shut schools and businesses in at least 10 cities, leaving streets deserted and rail services suspended. With millions now bracing for impact, Super Typhoon Ragasa has left a trail of destruction across the Philippines, Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Macau. Mukhtar Kasim, reporting for Global Television News.
A high-powered Nigerian delegation has arrived in London, United Kingdom, for the final phase of the country's presentation to host the centenary edition of the Commonwealth Games in 2030. The delegation is led by the chairman of the National Sports Commission, Shehu Diko, and Director General Bukola Olupade, as the team gets set to make a strong case for Nigeria's historic bid, which could see the Games come to Africa for the first time. The leadership of the National Sports Commission has restated its firm commitment to ensure that 14 recognized constituencies are fully represented on the boards of all sports federations in Nigeria. This assurance follows consultations with key stakeholders ahead of the forthcoming National Sports Federations elections. The Commission emphasized that the democratic structure of sports administration in Nigeria is anchored on inclusivity, fairness, and transparency, and therefore no constituency will be in the composition of the federation boards. Barcelona midfielder Gavi could miss 5 months of the season after having knee surgery. The 21-year-old featured in Barcelona's opening 2 matches of the season before the injury in his right knee during a training season in August. As Global Television News Express comes to an end, here's a recap of our top stories. On Global TV News Express, the head of service, Jumai Bako, has commended Governor Uba Sani for supporting and strengthening Kaduna State Civil Service through training and capacity building since he assumed office. In business, the Federal Inland Revenue Service says government's borrowing will continue as part of Nigeria's long-term economic strategy. And on the foreign scene, Super Typhoon Ragasa has killed at least 14 people in Taiwan after a lake burst before lashing Hong Kong and Macau with winds, floods, and storm surges. And in sport, a high-powered Nigerian delegation has arrived in London, United Kingdom, for the final phase of the country's presentation to host the centenary edition of the Commonwealth Games in 2030. That's it on News Express. A quick reminder that Global Television is on DSTV, channels 365 and Star Times, channels 276. Kindly follow us across all social media platforms now showing on your screen using at Global TV NG. I am Sadia Yakubu saying thank you for watching.